today's lesson is a new concept and it's called volume. And I want to give you about 30 seconds to go ahead and get your notebook out and a pencil so you can take some good notes for me today. So I'm going to give you some time to do that. Okay, looks like everybody's ready, so we'll go ahead. Volume, the definition of volume is how much space within a 3D shape. So the volume of something is how much can that container or that shape hold inside. How much is inside of that shape to make it fill up. And volume is measured in cubic units. Okay, cubic units. So 1 cube is 1 cubic unit. The formula for volume is length times width times height. Okay, so you're going to be measuring tall, you're going to be measuring how far back does it go to the wall, and you're going to be measuring how wide is it here. So you're going to be measuring up and down, side to side, and front to back. Okay, so that you can measure how much is inside of the whole object. Okay, go ahead and write down this definition and try to draw yourself a cubic unit. Don't take too long to do it. We can have a little lesson on how to do 3D shapes soon, but don't worry about it too much right now. Just know that you report volume in cubic units. And write down the formula. This is called the formula. How do you get the volume? You multiply the length by the width and by the height. Volume is a concept that you're going to need to understand because it's a 5th grade standard that you need to be able to do. Count the cubes in order to get the volume. So you're going to be given dimensions and you're going to have to solve for that total volume. And we'll see a little bit more in just a minute. Okay, so if it's possible, you're going to want to count the cubes. Now, what's deceptive or what's kind of tricky about this is that it's 3D. So you need to look at the front to see how many cubes there are. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cubes, and there's only one row. Do you see how that's just the side of the cube? Okay, because here's a cube. Let me get you a cube here. Okay, here's a cube. It has a front and sides. Okay, so it's a full cube, 3D figure. Okay, so if you have one row of 7, then your volume is 7 cubic units. And cubic units or units cubed is written units with a little 3, a 3 for the exponent. Okay, so this is said 7 cubic units. You're going to have to read it backwards. So 7 is how many blocks you had, cubes. 7 cubic, so you say this cubic here, and units. Now it could be centimeters, it could be inches. Now this is an unknown unit. We don't know how much these are worth, so we call them units, and we'll say cubic units. So if it's possible, count those cubes. Okay, these shapes all have the same volume, and that's what's so fun and interesting about volume is the same amount of space can be represented in many different ways. So look at this. This is a tall row or column of blocks or cubes, and you have 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You only have 1 back, 1 to the side, and 5 up. So the formula for that would be how tall is it? It's 5 tall. How wide is it? It's 1 wide. And how deep is it? How far does it go back? And that's 1 as well. And 5 times 1 times 1 is 5 cubic units. Okay? And there we are. Now look at this one. Okay, let's look at this one. This is the same as this. It's just on its side, right? So you have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across, 1 deep, so there's 1 row of that, and there's 1, so 5 across, 1 tall, and that equals 5 cubic units. Okay, so it's the same volume, the same amount of space, it's just tilted to the side, right? Okay, now this one up here is a little bit different, okay? You're going to want to just count the cubes on this one because the formula only works for a rectangular prism, and a rectangular prism is, it's like a rectangle, but it's 3D. Okay, now this is not a rectangle because look, you have a chunk missing right here. Okay, so this is not a rectangle. So you're just going to count the cubes, and it's 1 deep, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 cubic units. You have 5 cubes, right? 5 cubic units, okay? These shapes have the same volume. Now if you want to try to draw these, that's fine. Just do your best. The sketch is just as good, and you'll get more practice as this goes along. Okay, now if you have a big block, or rectangular prism is what this is called, a big block, then there is a way to solve this because you can't count them, you can't see all of them, right? So you look at the formula, like I said, length times width times height, okay? So let's look at the length is, really this should be 3. You see how bad I am? This should be 3. It's only 3 across, right? Alright, so we can solve this together now, huh? Okay, so there's 3 across here, there's 3 up, and there's 2 back. So there's my 2, my 3, and my 3. It doesn't matter what order you put them in because of the commutative property of multiplication. It doesn't matter. You can put them in different orders, you're going to get the same answer. So it doesn't matter as long as you have accounted for all of these numbers. 3 times 3 times 2. What is 2 times 3? 6. And then you have to multiply that by the remaining number, which is 3. And 6 times 3 is 18. You may not leave your answer as 18. You don't have 18 dogs or 18 feet. You have cubes there. So you need to have unit to the third power, or cubic unit, okay? Yes, it's weird that the cubic part of it comes at the end, okay? But you need to write the unit type and then put to the third power, okay? CU means cubic units, so you could also write this as 18 CU cubic unit, 18 units to the third power, or you could write 18 cubic units. My favorite way to write it is to write out the unit and put it to your third power because it is more clear of what you're trying to share or what you're trying to communicate. So the other way to find out is to multiply the dimensions. If it's a rectangular prism, if it's an odd shape, you can't use that. Okay, now I want us or you or we to try these. Okay, here are 2 shapes for you, and I kind of describe them because I know my illustrations aren't always the best. But here you have a stack of cubes, and it's only 1 cube deep, okay? 1 cube deep and 1 cube across. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tall, okay? And this one you have 2 layers of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have 2 layers of that. So 4 in the first layer, 4 in the second layer. So what's the volume for both of these shapes? And I want you to take a minute and try to solve it. I'm going to pause it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at the answers together. Okay, if you wanted to solve this using dimensions, you would say that it's 1 wide, 1 deep, and 7 tall. So that will be 7 cubic units. Okay? This one have 4 in the front and 4 in the back. Okay? So that would be, you have it 2 across. This is how you would do it in dimensions. 2 across, 2 tall, 1, 2, 2 tall, 2 across, and 2 deep. And what is 2 times 2? 4, and 4 times 2 is 8 cubic units. Okay? You could also have counted the blocks here, 2, 4, 6, 8. You know that the same thing's in the back. Okay? If you can't see those blocks there, assume that they're there, because unless you're taking the Air Force test, because Air Force tests, you have to not assume that they're back there. But for 5th grade purposes, you need to assume that they're back there. Assume that it is a rectangular prism. If you see the words rectangular prism, you can assume that it is a solid strand or block of cubes. Okay? I'm going to show you some representations that you're going to be making as well, but I want to show you some that I have made, and they're different colors so you can kind of see. But this guy here is a 4 tall, 2 wide, and 1 deep. Okay? So I can either use the dimensions and say 4 times 2 times 1, or I can count 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay? I can see, I can touch, I can manipulate this. But when it's on a board like this, or it's an illustration or a picture, then it's really hard for you to manipulate it and touch it and pull it apart and count them, okay? But today, we're going to make some of our own so that we're going to be able to touch and feel volume. Here's another one. This is 1 layer deep, so you only have 1 layer. It is 3 across and 4 tall. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12 cubic units. Okay, you have 12 cubes. You have 12 individual cubes, and that's how you get cubic units. Okay, 12. Now, I can rearrange this, can't I? And still have 12. That's still 12. And if this would pop into each other, that's still 12, right? So there's different ways to show a rectangular prism with a volume of 12 cubic units. Alright, let's look at another one. What if I had this shape here? You have the same one that we had just a minute ago. It's a 4 by 2. Okay, so it's 4 tall, 2 wide, and there are 2 layers of that. Okay, so if you find out how many is in the front layer, you can double it. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8 in the front layer. We have 2 layers of 8. So 2 times 8 is, don't just say 16, say 16 cubic units, okay? Alright, let me see if I can throw you a little bit. Is this shape the same volume as the one that we just talked about, 16 cubic units? Well, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tall. It's 2 across, and you only have 1 layer of that. So 8 times 2 is, good, 16, times 1 is, anything times 1 is itself, so 16, oh, don't forget, cubic units, 18 cubic units. Okay, so yeah, it's the same. And look, all I did was this, whoop, and move it to the back. Okay, so you can manipulate these. If I turn it this way, it's still 18 cubic units. If I pop it onto the edge here, it's still 18 cubic units. So even this weird shape right here, 18 cubic units. Now for today, we're going to focus on rectangular prisms. So that has to be something that has all of its faces has to be rectangles. This face is a rectangle, this face is a rectangle, this face is a rectangle, so you're good. But if you have something like this, that front face there is not a rectangle, so it's not a rectangular prism. So for today's lesson, we're only going to work with rectangular prisms, and I'm going to ask you to make some of these of yourself. Now with these blocks, I don't want you to play with them, I don't want you throwing. I will give you a little bit of time to kind of get the wiggles out with them. But these are for educational purpose. So I don't want you to be throwing them around or trying to worry about the colors. Don't worry about the colors. They work the same no matter what color they are. So we're going to work with these together. So I want you to clear your desk, and we are going to work with some manipulative blocks, cubes, to learn volume.